I didn't believe in patterns like that before the grove. I was there for something simple, mapping, a contracted job, a patch of protected woodland about 2 hours off the nearest paved road. No signal, no people, just trees and a grid I was supposed to verify against satellite data that, according to my supervisor, had been slightly inconsistent. That should have been my first warning. Satellite data doesn't just become inconsistent. I arrived just before dusk. The grove looked ordinary at first glance. Dense trunks, dark soil, a ceiling of leaves that swallowed the sky. But there was a stillness to it. No wind, no insects, no birds, just quiet. The kind that presses against your ears until you start hearing things that aren't there. I set up a small base near the edge, unpacked my equipment, and started plotting coordinates. Everything was fine for the first hour. Then my compass started drifting, not spinning wildly, just sliding, a few degrees off, then correcting, then drifting again. I tapped it, checked for interference. Nothing. No metal deposits in the ground. No explanation. I marked it down anyway. Equipment malfunction. But then I noticed the trees. They were too evenly spaced. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Natural growth sometimes clusters like that. But the more I walked, the more precise it became. Each trunk stood at almost identical intervals, like points on graph paper. I paced it out, exact distances, over and over. 5 steps, always 5. I remember stopping and laughing under my breath. Plantation, I said out loud just to hear something human. But these trees were old, twisted, their bark split and sagging with age. No one had planted these in neat rows. Not like this, not this precisely. The light started fading faster than it should have. I checked my watch. Still early evening, but under the canopy it felt like night was already pushing in. Shadows thickened between the trunks, turning the gaps into dark corridors. That's when I heard it. A soft, dry scratching. I froze. It wasn't close. Somewhere deeper in the grove, a faint repetitive sound, like something dragging against bark or nails against wood. I waited. It stopped. The silence that followed felt wrong, like the grove itself was listening. I told myself it was an animal, something small, harmless. Still, I packed up for the night quicker than I meant to. I set up my tent and tried to ignore the way the trees loomed just beyond the thin fabric, tried to ignore how evenly spaced they were, even here, even at the edge. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I had this strange sensation like I was being measured, not watched, measured, as if something unseen was calculating the space I occupied. At some point, I must have drifted off, because the next thing I remember is waking up to the sound again. Closer this time. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. Scratch. My throat felt dry. My hands were already shaking before I fully understood why. I reached for my flashlight and clicked it on. The beam cut through the tent fabric and stopped on a shape. Something was standing outside, perfectly still. It wasn't moving, but I could see it, just a faint silhouette against the darker background of the trees. Too straight, too narrow. Not a person, not an animal. It didn't have features, not clearly, just angles, sharp, unnatural angles, like its limbs bent at precise, impossible degrees. Scratch.
The sound came again, but its body didn't move. I realized then the sound wasn't coming from it. It was coming from behind me, inside the tent. I spun around so fast I nearly tore the zipper open with my shoulder. There was nothing there, just my equipment, my bag, my compass. Except the compass needle wasn't drifting anymore. It was fixed, pointing directly at the tent wall, at the thing outside. My breath hitched. Slowly, I turned back. The silhouette was closer now. I hadn't heard it move. It stood just inches from the fabric, close enough that I could see faint indentations where something pressed against it. Edges, not curves, as if its body wasn't smooth, but segmented into straight lines. I could smell something, too. Not rot, not quite. Dryness, like old wood, like dust trapped in a place untouched for decades. My hand slipped as I reached for the zipper. The scratching started again, louder, frantic now, but still from behind me. I didn't turn this time. I couldn't, because the tent wall in front of me, it was changing. The fabric stretched slightly, pulled outward in tiny, precise points, as if invisible fingers were pressing from the inside, aligning themselves to match the shape outside, matching it, mapping it. My chest tightened, my vision blurred at the edges. That's when it hit me. The trees, the spacing, the grid. It wasn't random. It wasn't natural. It was a pattern, a structure, and I wasn't walking through it. I was inside it. The grove wasn't a place. It was something else, something that arranged everything within it. Trees, space, movement, even me. The silhouette shifted, just slightly, and for the first time I saw where its head should be tilt, precisely 15 degrees to the left, like it was correcting itself, or correcting me. The scratching behind me stopped, the silence returned, and then, very softly, from everywhere at once, a voice, not spoken, not heard, felt, measuring, adjusting. I looked down at my hands, my fingers. They weren't trembling anymore. They were straight, too straight, each one aligned perfectly, like they were trying to match something I couldn't see. I tried to move them. They didn't respond. Outside, the thing took one slow step closer, and inside my head, that silent presence pressed in tighter, as if it had finally figured out where I was supposed to fit.
I wasn't supposed to stay after dark. That was the agreement. Get in, document the canopy density, take samples, and get out before sunset. The reserve had strict rules, something about preserving nocturnal patterns, but the ranger who briefed me kept avoiding eye contact when he said it, like he was leaving something out. I didn't press. I should have. The forest sat in a shallow basin, choked with old growth, trees so tall their crowns tangled together into a thick, living ceiling. Barely any light reached the ground, even at midday. The air felt damp, heavy. Every breath tasted faintly of mildew and something older, something sour beneath it. Rot, maybe. I set my pack down near a fallen trunk and started setting up my equipment. Sound recorder, camera, basic survey tools, routine work. The silence was the first thing I noticed. No birds, no insects. just the faint creak of wood shifting high above where I couldn't see. I remember glancing up, squinting into the canopy, trying to pick out movement between the overlapping branches. That's when I heard it. A voice. "Hey." Soft. Close. Too close. I turned immediately, heart kicking once, hard enough to make my vision pulse. No one was there. Just trees, damp soil, the same suffocating stillness. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and shook my head. Sound carries strangely in forests, I told myself. Could have been anything. Wind, distant hikers. But there was no wind, and I hadn't passed a single person on the trail in. I went back to work, though my hands felt off, slightly unsteady, like I'd had too much caffeine. About 20 minutes later, I reached for my field notebook. It wasn't where I left it. I checked my pack, my pockets, the ground around me. Nothing. I was certain I'd set it on the log. I could picture it there. Black cover, edges worn, a faint crease down the middle. Gone. A cold prickle spread across the back of my neck. I stood still, listening. At first, there was nothing. Then, pages flipping, slow, deliberate, somewhere above me. I tilted my head back. The canopy swallowed the light, but I could see shapes shifting between the branches, subtle, just enough to suggest movement. And then again, "Hey." My voice. Exactly my voice. Same pitch, same tone. It came from above. My throat tightened. I swallowed hard, tasting something metallic. "Hello?" I called, the word catching halfway. Silence. Then the sound of something dragging lightly across bark, a dry, papery scrape. I stepped back, boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. "Hey," it said again, closer this time, mocking. The word bent at the end, stretched just a little too long, like whoever or whatever was speaking didn't quite understand how it should sound. I grabbed my camera and pointed it upward, zooming into the dense weave of branches. At first I saw nothing. Then something shifted. A shape, thin, elongated, pressed against the limbs high above, like it was clinging to them. It moved sideways, not climbing, sliding, as if the branches were rails and it knew exactly where to place itself. My breath came shallow now, quick bursts that fogged the viewfinder. "Hello?" it called again, but this time it wasn't my voice. It was several voices, layered, mine and something else beneath it, something deeper, hollow. I lowered the camera slowly, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped it. I needed to leave. That thought cut through everything else, clean, urgent. I turned toward my pack and froze. It was gone. The spot where I'd left it was empty. No drag marks, no disturbance in the soil. Just gone. A low sound drifted down from above. Not quite laughter, not quite breath, something in between. I forced myself to look up again. The shape had moved closer, much closer. I could see it now, outlined against a thin break in the canopy. It looked wrong. Its limbs were too long, bending around branches at angles that didn't make sense. Its body pressed flat against the wood, as if it didn't have depth, just a surface stretched over something trying to imitate a form it didn't fully understand. And its head, it tilted, slowly, mirroring the exact angle of my own. My stomach twisted. I hadn't realized I was leaning. "Hey," it whispered, perfectly. My voice, no distortion this time. My mouth went dry. I took a step back. It took a step forward. Not down, not jumping, just appearing on a lower branch, closer to eye level.
No sound of movement, no shift in weight, just there. The smell hit me then, stronger now. Wet decay, leaves long dead, crushed into something soft and foul, and underneath it, something sweet, sickly sweet, like fruit left too long in the heat. My vision swum. "Stop," I said, barely more than a breath. For a moment, it didn't respond. Then its head tilted again, exactly the same way mine had, and it whispered, "Stop." The same hesitation, the same tremor. My chest tightened, my hands curled into fists without me meaning them to. And above me, it did the same, perfectly. Every movement, every breath. I realized then it wasn't just copying my voice. It was learning me, refining itself, each repetition more precise than the last. I stumbled backward, my heel catching on something unseen, sending me crashing to the ground. The impact knocked the air out of my lungs. For a second, everything went silent. Then, leaves rustled. Close, too close. I lifted my head slowly. It wasn't in the canopy anymore. It was on the ground, crouched just a few feet away, its shape clearer now, and worse. It wasn't solid, parts of it shifting, adjusting like it couldn't hold one form for long, limbs stretching, shortening, bending until they matched mine. Its face, it didn't have one, not yet, just a smooth surface, twitching, waiting. My breath came in ragged pulls, cold sweat trickled down my spine, and then, slowly, painfully, the surface began to change, indentations forming, contours emerging, eyes, a nose, a mouth. My mouth. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even look away. It inhaled sharply, mirroring me, and when it exhaled, it smiled. Perfect, exact, mine. I don't remember getting up. I don't remember running. I just remember the sound behind me. Footsteps, matching mine, step for step, breath for breath, closer each time, and then nothing. When I came to, I was at the edge of the forest, alone. My pack sat neatly beside me. My notebook rested on top, open to a page I didn't remember writing. There was only one line, written in my handwriting, over and over. Hey. I don't go near forests anymore. I don't answer unfamiliar voices. And sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I hear it, soft, right behind